What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to the PlayStation E3 2017 recap, where there was a good bit of news. To me, the show overall was just a little bit underwhelming, but there was still a ton of stuff to talk about, even though it was largely stuff that we saw last year, but there were a few big announcements. Right at the start of the show, we see another trailer for Uncharted: The Lost Legacy that is coming out in just a couple of weeks, and this game is looking just as good as Uncharted 4 did whenever it was about to come out last year. For those that don't know, The Lost Legacy is pretty much a side story to the main Uncharted story that follows the tale of Nadine and Chloe, two characters that, although they are in different games, do seem to be intertwined in some kind of adventure within The Lost Legacy, and to be honest, I am really excited about this. It is not going to be a full price title. It is a little bit shorter than Uncharted 4, probably clocking in at around 6 or 7 hours, but I am sure there is going to be a ton to do, a ton of ancient ruins to explore within The Lost Legacy to definitely make it worth your time and money. After that, we saw some Horizon Zero Dawn DLC by the name of The Frozen Wild that is set to come out later this year, and it does look to be like a pretty big, substantial expansion for Horizon Zero Dawn, which in my opinion is pretty much the best project Guerrilla has worked on to date, and yes, I am including Killzone in that. And yes, I mean the entire franchise. Horizon Zero Dawn created such an atmosphere, it created such a sense of immersion within the game, even just playing on a regular PlayStation 4, not the PlayStation 4 Pro. The game is just so immersive, and they truly do care about the experience of the gamer themselves, and so I expect that same kind of experience from the Frozen Wild DLC that is coming out later on in 2017. After that, we saw some gameplay for Days Gone, which looks to be like a true zombie survival game, and one thing I do want to say about this one is that I like how it kind of looks like it plays like Horizon Zero Dawn. There is a little bit of that DNA in there, because instead of just being like a lot of other zombie games where you just kind of are a shoot-to-thrills kind of character where you go in, kill the zombies, get whatever you want, and get out, you really do have to plan before you attack a giant horde. You have to lay down some C4 to blow up a wall to get out of whatever you are doing. You have to be able to lay some traps to affect a survivor, and then they will be bait for a zombie. You have to really plan out how you are going to go about attacking the objective before you set out to actually do that, and that really is kind of like a breath of fresh air for me, especially in this genre. I also like the fact that you can impact the gameplay through the use of zombies themselves. You can kind of direct the horde to take out some enemy survivors if you need to save somebody, like we saw within the trailer. It does look like the zombies themselves are going to be integrated into the game as kind of like a weapon as well as a threat. So that's a pretty cool idea to see, and I am glad to see that is coming through in Days Gone and they aren't just kind of NPC enemies. After that, there was a pretty big shocker. We saw Monster Hunter World coming to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and somebody in my Twitch chat actually did end up saying this seems like more of a Nintendo franchise, and quite frankly, it does. However, that is not stopping Capcom from bringing Monster Hunter finally to some more powerful consoles, because I feel like the franchise as a whole hasn't been explored fully as it could be on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, which all three of those are going to be getting the game, so I am excited to see this one, and I think this is going to be the first Monster Hunter experience that really can grasp a wider audience rather than just what Nintendo has had over the course of the past couple of years. However, I am shocked. No Switch version? I mean, that just kind of seems like a no-brainer. Maybe this was some kind of exclusive contract between PlayStation, Xbox, and PC guys, but no Switch? Really? After that, there was a pretty big bombshell drop, which is the return of Shadow of the Colossus, and I am glad to see this when it was kind of leaked earlier in the day yesterday, whenever some copyrights did go up that Sony had filed and this was included in them, so I wasn't necessarily surprised as some other people might have been, but with that being taken into account, I am glad to see the franchise finally returning after such a long time. I remember having the demo for the original Shadow of the Colossus on a jam pack way back in the day, so that's how old that game is. I was still playing jam packs whenever Shadow of the Colossus came out, but hopefully it is going to be an entire reboot and not necessarily a remake. Either way, it is nice to see them doing something with Shadow of the Colossus, so I can't really complain. After some Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite gameplay, which I mean, it was a trailer. It's not my cup of tea. It is coming out. It's going to be more Marvel vs. Capcom. We did end up seeing Call of Duty World War II multiplayer gameplay reveal, which didn't even look like multiplayer. I'm not going to call it multiplayer reveal because that's not what it was. It was just some gameplay. But overall, it looks like Battlefield 1, but in World War II. I saw flamethrowers. It has that gritty kind of cinematic Battlefield 1 look. It literally looks like they just copied Battlefield. Now, I'm sure this has been in the works for a lot longer than Battlefield 1 has been in the works. But, I mean, it looks like Battlefield 1. Then there were a ton of virtual reality titles coming to the PlayStation VR, and a lot of people were saying this took up a lot of time, and it did, and it should, because PlayStation VR has been the next big thing coming for PlayStation for quite a while now, and they need to show that they are going to continue to support this hardware, unlike whenever the Move came out and they pretty much dropped it after about a year or two. So there was a big list of games revealed right here. We have Skyrim VR, which is a big one that I was wondering if it was going to be coming to the PlayStation VR. Then you have a game called Star Child the Impatient, not impatient like, you know, hurry the hell up. I'm talking about like impatient like you are an inpatient in a hospital. Then you have Monster of the Deep Final Fantasy 15, which is literally just a fishing game in VR that takes place in the Final Fantasy universe, because everybody loves fishing in Final Fantasy 15. But then you have Bravo Team, which looks pretty cool, a game called Deep, a game called Polyarch, and then a game called Moss, which features you as kind of like an omniscient being helping a mouse through various puzzles and trials. So anyway, there are a lot of VR games coming to PlayStation VR, so they are going to continue supporting that hardware over the course of at least the next year. So if you were on the fence about getting one because of the wondering if they would actually support it or not, they are definitely coming out with a couple of games for that thing, so you might want to consider it. As for me though, still on the fence about jumping on the train to VR. I think I would rather get a 4K monitor before I dropped that same amount of money or more on a VR headset, whether it be PlayStation VR, whether it be Oculus Rift, or HTC Vive. I'm just not completely sold yet. Then we saw more gameplay of God of War, which is coming out in 2018, and pretty much the premise behind the game is that you are helping your son learn how to survive in a Norse mythology environment. And man, it just keeps looking more and more beautiful every time I see it. This game is going to really take the cake, especially if it's still shown off at next year's E3. I mean, I know it's going to be its third E3, but that is going to be one substantial final big blowout before the game comes out next year. Between the enemies and the weapons and the way you attack the enemies with the weapons and the look of Kratos and the shine of the sweat on his skin and the colors, everything just pops about this game. I am so excited to get my hands on God of War next year. After that, we saw some more Detroit Beyond Human, and to be honest, it looks a lot different than it did at last year's E3 conference. It seems to be more android versus human rather than you are trying to stop an android from killing a human. It's definitely playing with the emotions of the people that have been paying attention over the years, because it seems like instead of siding directly with the person that we identify as normally the humans, we actually feel for the androids in this case. But either way, it's pretty much the beginning of a revolution by the androids against the humans. Within the trailer, we see Marcus, who is pretty much the leader of the revolution, or you can choose to pretty much be a bystander. It just depends on how you want to play the game. But pretty much if you are trying to break into an android store to free these robots that would normally be able to be bought and used as pretty much slaves, you can choose to hide from the police, you can choose to act like you are not involved in the situation, or you can choose to face the police head on, and each of these little decisions does impact how the story unfolds over time. So in a sense, it's just more of what we were expecting from Detroit, just in a different light. After that, we saw some more Destiny 2, which was largely a cinematic, but then there was a ton of exclusive PlayStation content that is going to be on a timed release schedule. So right out of the gate, you have a Borealis rifle, a Lake of Shadows strike, a Retribution player versus player map, and then some exclusive PlayStation gear that you are going to be getting if you choose to play the game on the PlayStation 4. That being said, all of this is going to come out to other platforms over time, because that simply wouldn't be fair because of just how big of a content package all of that stuff ends up actually being. That's a big part of the game. For those interested in beta dates for Destiny 2 as well as release dates, there is going to be an early access beta that begins on the PlayStation 4 4 on July the 18th. It begins on Xbox One on July the 19th for those that pre-order, of course. Then there is going to be an open beta that starts on July the 21st. Now, that's just console stuff. The PC beta is going to be coming later in August, so you can look forward to that. Now, as far as release dates go, the release date of Destiny 2 on consoles has been pushed up actually to September the 6th. However, if you want to play on PC, it is going to be coming out on October the 24th, a full 46 days after the launch on consoles. So that's a little bit disappointing. But I mean, I want to say take your time, but to me this just feels like they're kind of manipulating the release dates to sell more copies on PlayStation and Xbox, because to be honest, I might buy a PlayStation copy on day one and then get a PC copy later on down the road. I don't know, it just feels kind of manipulative to me. And to wrap up the conference, we saw some lengthy Spider-Man gameplay, and the game is going to be coming out in 2018, and my god, this game looks so good, and that's coming from somebody that has grown up on Spider-Man as a kid. Spider-Man was my favorite superhero of all time, still remains so today, and one big thing worth mentioning here is that the game is going to feature both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, so for fans of both sides of Spider-Man, you are getting the best of both worlds. Now, within the trailer, we see two pretty big names dropped, one of which is Wilson Fisk, who is a pretty big mobster within the Spider-Man universe, and then on top of that we see Mr. Negative, who in my opinion is kind of a lesser-known Spider-Man villain, but still a welcome addition to the game, and so those are at least two big villains that we are going to be getting from this game. Will more be revealed as time goes on? You can probably bet on it. As far as the gameplay goes, I'm loving the combat. It feels a lot like Arkham Knight as far as I can see. The web slinging, it looks like it functions well. I wish the web's directly attached to buildings 100% of the time. Maybe that's something they are going to be working out over the course of the next year or so before release. But as far as I can see from a pre-release standpoint, Spider-Man looks absolutely gorgeous and I am totally pumped. As a matter of fact, it's probably going to be my game of the show for this year. And with that, that was pretty much the Sony E3 2017 press conference. If you watched along, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Was it good? Did they win E3 as much as they did last year? Who has your favorite press conference been so far? And if you happen to be new here, I have been uploading videos throughout the weekend and the early part of the week, talking about E3, breaking down the conferences, all of that good stuff, so be sure to check those out. But as for right now, I'm going to go rewatch that Spider-Man gameplay because it is oh so sweet. I will talk to you soon. Peace.